Hello and welcome to this webinar on children and evaluation. It's hosted by BetterEvaluation and the community of evaluators in South Asia. My name is Simon Hearn. I'm a research fellow at the Overseas Development Institute in London, and I'm going to be hosting today. I'm involved in BetterEvaluation as the community facilitator, and I'll be hosting with Patricia Rogers, who's the head of the BetterEvaluation initiative. We also have with us Malika, who's the president of the community of evaluators, and we are also expecting Sonal to join us very shortly, but we've had some trouble getting her online. She's having some problems with her computer in Delhi, where she is. So hopefully she will be able to join us, but otherwise we're going to be going ahead with the presentations from Malika. We have about 45 minutes remaining of our time. So I'm going to go straight to, I think, Patricia. So Patricia is in Melbourne today. She's a professor at the Royal Melbourne Institute for Technology, and she's the project director for BetterEvaluation, and she'll be chairing us and introducing the topic for today. So over to you, Patricia.
Thank you, Simon, and welcome everyone to the webinar. This is a very important topic in development. The issue of children in evaluation does raise some particular challenges, and I'm just delighted with the presentations that we hope to hear both of them today. The issue of children has had a particular importance for development in terms of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which provide a framework for thinking about how children need to be involved, that it's not something that people can only act on their behalf, only do evaluation on their behalf, only do planning and make decisions on their behalf, that they're actually a distinct constituency with their own needs and they have rights, and that the duty bearers are morally bound to ensure that the opportunities are available for children to exercise their rights to development, to survival, to protection and to participation. And the examples that we have a chance to hear about today show how these really terrific principles can actually and have actually been put into place. So I'm very pleased to be able to introduce Malika Samaranayaka, who is both the president and the founder member of the Community of Evaluators South Asia, and founder member and past president of the Sri Lanka Evaluation Association. She was regional coordinator of the Asia Pacific, serving as the core evaluation team member for Phase 2 of the Paris Declaration evaluation, which was awarded the 2012 Outstanding Evaluation Award of the American Evaluation Association. Malika is also the technical lead for the Child Protection in Crisis Learning Network Sri Lanka, which is affiliated to the CPC Learning Network, Columbia University Mailman School of Public Health, USA. She has important insights to share from her experience in conducting research and evaluations which involve children and youth for nearly 30 years. And one of the features about this work is going beyond evaluation of children or even for children to think about how we might do evaluation with children or by children, and to support evaluation by children. So I'll pass now to Malika, and if you have some questions, please put those through as we go, and we'll have some time for questions there. So over to you, Malika.
Thank you, Patricia. It's my great pleasure to share my experience at this webinar, and thank you for the opportunity given to BetterEvaluation as well. So I'm not touching very much on the conceptual background because Patricia has already shared something with you. Taking it from her, I would like to discuss why children's voices matter very briefly. Well, it is a part of their right to participate, hold their own views, and also should have the right to express themselves. Their insights vary from those of adults. Children's views are their reality. Participation gives recognition and feed into an evolutionary process of capacity building for children themselves. Their views need to be taken into account in decisions that affect them. And that's why we need to consider children. But at the same time, if you want children involved, it is very necessary that we create a very friendly environment for them to interact. And that is the role of the facilitator, to create a child-friendly environment, and the confidence and credibility of the facilitator is then established. There has to be respect for ethics and values. The role and skills of the facilitator and ability to adapt to the socio-cultural context is also very important. Simple and child-friendly tools with the flexibility to adapt to the subject under discussion and the age group of the children participating are also extremely important, as you see in these pictures. Some of the experiences that I'm going to discuss today are on these lines. I will take them one by one. Attitudes, behavior, and values as perceived by children. This is an exercise that was undertaken after tsunami when UNICEF was promoting child clubs and child-friendly environments in schools, so that there was a certain input or certain interventions with regard to children's rights, as well as the good qualities and manners and behaviors and attitudes of children. So how we wanted to assess from these children how they look at it is by asking the children to draw a picture of their best friend, girl or boy, and then also write down what are the good qualities that attracted you to select that person as the best friend. So you can see about 20 children very busy writing down, drawing and writing, and they didn't even bother to look at the camera, and that shows how much engrossed they were. So what we are provided was the papers, the color pencils, and you can see them busy. And I would call this tool draw and write. This is yet another occasion where children's participation mattered a lot in even changing adults' views. This diagram is something that was drawn by the people in a community that had been totally destroyed by tsunami. They had to relocate buildings, they had to relocate even the school. The school that you see in this map on top with a cross was the one that got washed off completely. So they were designing a new school at, you see that the location is at the bottom of this map, but this is not the original location. They wanted it to be more toward the left side of this diagram. And the dotted line called Symmetry Street was the one that was supposed to bring the children through the school. And in this playground, they wanted to provide a pavilion which they did not have before in the former school. And the architectural blueprints were displayed and they showed this. And after that, what they all wanted was to, to get yes for the diagrams that they have come up with and the plans that they have come up with, the planners. And they said, okay, are there any comments? None of the adults said anything about the building or the pavilion or the position that it was drawn into. But one child walked straight onto the diagram and the architectural design and showed if you do the pavilion like this, it is facing north-south, and that means we'll bake in the sun morning and evening by getting the sun from the east as well as west. People were a little bit stunned, and even the designers, they never thought about this, surprisingly. And then the child said, you can see the news location with the arrow, but was Prasan School. There they drew the pavilion and showed that if you do it east-west orientation, we can comfortably watch what is happening in the playground. So the pavilion was redesigned in that manner. The arrows that point towards from the old building to this new building is also children's view, where originally they had planned to come a long way. They said, why? We have a straight road. Let's go take this one and relocate the pavilion close to that place and the school as well. So that carried off with children's views. The next example that I like to share with you is evaluation of project interventions by children. You can see them busy listing. What we asked was, what is it that you, as a result of the project intervention, which you benefited from. They listed all that, and then we asked them in the discussion, please rank what is the most important, the next important, the next important in rank order. And you can see they ranked school learning materials number 1 and school bags number 2 and so on, as you can see in this diagram. We also got the children to identify what problems they had in their schools. So this particular place is it is near a refugee camp after the war and also after tsunami. It's a huge camp, and children, there were several camps, and children had to come to the schools in a particular location. And you can see the needs identified by the children. Not enough teachers was number 1, and uncomfortable temporary learning spaces, number 2. Roof is damaged and it leaks, you can see it in the picture. School learning materials not received by all. Non-provision of library and computer facilities, and non-provision of bicycles to overcome transport difficulties. Because some children had to come long distances and they had to start very early in the morning. So you can see these things we never perceive from adults' point of view. And it was such a good discussion that we could rectify the situation later by the project interveners. I'm drawing this from the Columbia Group of Children for Children in Adversity, who conducted this study in several countries, including Sri Lanka. I'm going to share another example where children are participating throughout the project cycle. Identification of needs, then identification of solutions, and taking part in the implementation of the solutions. And you can see we had children from 2 schools, a boys' school and a girls' school, at the same building. And at the beginning we were asking the children, please draw your school premises and show us the water and sanitation related problems that you encounter. So that's what the boys and the girls were doing. And after the diagram or the mapping exercise, they presented it to the audience. And in this map, the places marked with a red cross, this is the girls' map, are the ones that they identified as problem areas. And they were water shortage storage tanks do not get filled, no water to clean the toilets, no water for gardening, water taps broken, some toilets damaged, soil erosion on the hill slopes, and garbage disposal problems. Those were the ones that were identified. Yes, I went through this list. And now, what is it that they can do about it? They were asked to think of solutions. They had participated in a seminar which was talking about collection of rainwater. This particular school is in a hill slope, and then the intake from the normal tap system was very slow and intermittent. They didn't have enough water up there in the school tanks. So you can see these children role-playing about the solution. No water everywhere, dirty everywhere, and what can we do? And they said, don't worry about the problem, we will have a big tank of water. They were singing and making this presentation when some of the donors were also present. This was in connection with the Sri Lanka Water Partnership, and I was the coordinator for the school program and also the regional representative. So I was waiting for this to, we could support it, but as long as it is wanted by the children. So we could really respond by giving them the water storage tank, and you can see even the art is expressing the need for it. So that was the solutions that they came out with, and 6 months later you can see they got the benefits of the tank. When children spoke out, there was a natural tendency to support, even not only by Water Partnership but even others. And this particular school was really selected as the solid example for good water and sanitation and for a good example of water and sanitation preserved school when the Sakosan conference number 4 was held in Sri Lanka. And I took some of the participants to see this school, and they were so surprised, not a piece of dirt on the ground. And so nicely the erosion control measures adopted for school gardening. And the water tank supplied the water, and you can also see some conservation and also composting that the children were doing by themselves. And what more? About waste disposal, it came up as a problem. And there was an idea that came up that each child can put all the waste that they collect during the day into a bag. And they were provided with some support, these blue bags that they are carrying, fairly big. But the children found that they were not collecting that much of waste to fill in each one of these bags by themselves. And the good idea came, no, we will have one big bag for one class. So you can see 6C, the big bag. But still they will bring their small little bags that they are showing and empty them into the big bag by the end of the day. And one child carries that home. So everybody need not carry the waste. And the teachers have taught them how to dispose of it once they get back to their home. Like that, within about 1.5 months duration, each child gets only 2 days of duty to carry the big bag home. And similarly, with water and with the toilet facilities and sanitary facilities, you can see they have two different blocks they had designed. One for the elder sisters in grades 9 to 13 and the other one from grade 1 to 5. And it was said that they were asked to, the little girls were asked to go in pairs. One stays outside the door while the other one comes out of the toilet. That is for protection by themselves. So it worked so well. Here you can see children evaluating project interventions over time. And there again, we will use focus group discussion after criteria-based scoring in the focus group. And you can see what they have come up with are change of feelings about school since the program began, change of attendance, change in girls' perception, change in boys' participation, girls' participation, yes, of course, and change in the sense of safety and security. And you can see it was a Likert scale that we asked them to use, and they have given 5 out of 5 for safety and security, for protecting themselves in emergencies, and students' involvement in problem solving. The one that had progress least, as none of us would have imagined, is change in fighting to resolve interpersonal differences. They say it's still going on. And in the picture you can see, we have also asked them to give reasons for the score. And that is what these girls are doing during the assessment. Similar exercise was done by the boys separately. So we wanted to see whether these compare almost the same. But there were little differences, but basically, more or less, they were in conformity with each other. So these are the participatory tools that we used in involving children. It's mapping, draw and write, brainstorming and listening, scoring and ranking, role play, art, interactive discussion with visualization. Some of the lessons learned, if I may summarize, is that it is very necessary to build rapport with the children. We even danced with them, we sang with them before we started on these exercises. And that is very important to make them feel comfortable. Use a participatory approach and relevant tools appropriate for the particular age group. Visualization does help, and it records, and they also see in front of them to triangulate whether what they have said has been recorded as well. So they record by themselves. And the focus groups allow for triangulation and for the group to reach consensus before they give the score. Children may speak out of point, but the facilitator must have patience and listen and bring them on track at the appropriate time. we have to allow for creativity in expressing ideas, and that also is time consuming. Children have better insights as users of facilities, like that pavilion example that I gave you, where they said, we are going to bake in the sun, this pavilion is going to help us. So because they feel when they sit there, this is what will happen. Children can identify signs of success or failure, especially with regard to water, how much it comes and how much they use. Then follow evaluation ethics and maintain confidentiality of the information by the facilitator, which is very, very important. Sonal was expected to talk a little bit more on this. Unfortunately, she couldn't get connected. I hope she will be able to get connected soon. These are some of the references that I used to pick up these examples. And yes, thank you for listening. I hope these experiences are useful for you in future when you do your own evaluations with children. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Malika. These are terrific examples, I think, to bear in mind. Clearly, what we're seeing here are some participatory methods being used with groups of people for whom they're not always thought of being used. And it does speak to the need for evaluators to not only have facilitation skills in order to do this, but also a belief that children's views both matter and can be expressed through these techniques. And so I think seeing these examples really helps with that. So I'll pass over to you, Simon, to take questions.
Well, we have Sonal on actually, so we can go to Sonal's presentation.
That's terrific then. And I'll just very briefly, Sonal is also very experienced with over 25 years experience of working with children internationally. She's won UNICEF's Outstanding Evaluation Awards for her work in Uzbekistan as well as Central and Southeast Europe. Also a founder member of the Community of Evaluators and an international advisor with the Child to Child Trust Institute of Education, London. So with that expertise, I'm just delighted that we have a chance for Sonal to present her presentation, and we hope that we'll still have a chance to pick up questions. If not in this webinar, then we'll talk at the end how we'll be able to respond to those. Thank you. Over to you, Sonal.
Hello, everybody. I'm really glad to be online, finally. So good afternoon from sunny India. Today is the inaugural webinar for the Community of Evaluators South Asia, and we are really pleased to welcome you. I'm going to be talking about what does it mean to have a child lens in evaluation, what evaluator values and skills are needed, and I'm also going to discuss what are the rights-based and ethical considerations in the design of the evaluation. Finally, I will discuss some methods and tools that I have found useful. Before we begin, let's define who is a child. The Convention on the Rights of the Child, or the CRC, defines a child as one below the age of 18 years. For the purpose of this webinar, when I refer to children, I'm talking about the age group of 9 to 18 years, which also aligns with the definition of adolescence. These ages are only indicative for meaningfully involving children in evaluations. Speaking in general terms, children by age 9 are usually able to understand why you're involving them in evaluations, what their role is, and are able to express their knowledge, feelings, and explain their actions. The point is that unlike adults, the age and maturity of the children must be considered carefully when involving them in evaluations. The understanding that we need to focus on children and that their views are important is a fairly recent phenomenon. As mentioned, a landmark document, that the Convention of the Rights of the Child, was adopted by the UN General Assembly Society to introduce a variety of programs for the welfare of children. Naturally, the demand for evaluation of programs involving children grew as well. It's important for evaluators to note that the Convention introduced very important paradigm shifts, that children had rights for development, survival, protection, and participation, and duty bearers were morally bound to ensure that opportunities were available for children to exercise these rights. The Convention's emphasis on children's participation is particularly important for evaluators. Often adults, parents, teachers, community workers are proxy sources for information regarding changes in children's knowledge, attitude, and behavior. But the convention suggests that evaluators recognize that children have a right to participate in decisions that concern their well-being, and it also provides a roadmap for the selection of evaluation approaches and tools. The participatory approach to evaluation resonates, responding to children's rights, suggesting the use of child-friendly methods and tools. Along with participation, the convention also emphasizes protection. And children's right to protection in the context of evaluation has resulted in ethical concerns when children participate. In any evaluation or research, it's important to note that with children, there are special challenges because adults have greater power. This discussion highlights three important issues. One, that evaluation with children must be anchored in the children's rights movement. Two, by doing so, we evaluators must choose to align ourselves with evaluation frameworks that respect the rights of children to participate. And three, the evaluation process should be in the best interest of the child and do no harm. Although we may believe in and agree with the use of participatory approaches in evaluation, it's important to define clearly whether we are doing evaluation of children's knowledge, feelings, and action, or are we doing with them, or is the evaluation by them? Participation of children must lead to their own reflection and empowerment. Adults can only partially understand the changes projects and programs bring in children's lives. Children, in fact, have their own lived reality and express their thoughts, feelings, and actions in a unique idiom that is different from that of adults. Children can express changes they've experienced only if adults know how to use tools that are child-friendly and how to communicate to children. Evaluation with children is not just about the use of child-friendly tools. The evaluators' views of childhood and their values and attitude towards children influence the evaluation process. An evaluator who is non-judgmental will not impose adult views on children and will accept children's viewpoint even if it's different from theirs. So evaluators working with children need two sets of skills. Evaluator skills in the use of participatory child-friendly tools, as well as facilitator skills of positive energy, good temper, a strong commitment to learn from children, and most importantly, to make the evaluation activity enjoyable. Ethical guidelines require that children be informed about the purpose and details of the evaluation as well. But in many contexts, children do not know that they can refuse, and neither do adults responsible for them. Evaluators must spend considerable time with adults and children explaining why you're conducting the evaluation, how will you do it, and why it's important to get the children's point of view. The evaluator's friendly attitude and tone are often more important than the words used. The evaluation should also take place in a safe place, a place where adults responsible for children are readily available but out of earshot, a place where children cannot be overheard and can freely express themselves. This may require both preparation and negotiation. A last-minute exhortation by adults to children to answer properly, said in a stern voice and a menacing face, can scare and silence the children. In some societies, the gender of the evaluator may also be an issue. In any evaluation with children, it's important to have child safeguarding principles in place. For example, evaluators need to be vetted in terms of their eligibility to work with children and to maintain confidentiality. If children themselves are conducting an evaluation, such as interviewing people, mapping the community, or doing group activities with their peers, it's important to ensure that they are not at risk either because of the questions they're asking, or the people whom they're asking, or the places they're going to. Ethical guidelines, I must say, are important, but not enough. An evaluator has to anticipate and prevent any unintended effects of data gathering. What presents a special conundrum to evaluators is that when we respect children and give them space to express, children may also expose inequities or problems in the program and upset the adult power balance. How to present the data and ensure appropriate remedial measures without penalizing children is often a tightrope walk. An evaluator also has to be alert and observant. In an evaluation of a school health program in rural West Africa, I saw a cane used for whipping in one corner of the classroom and carefully added some questions during the focus group discussion. The children hesitantly but clearly informed about the caning. We had to take immediate steps to manage the children and the situation. So the principles of the best interest of the child is a useful one for evaluators in formulating the questions, methods, and tools. An excellent resource for more information is provided on this slide. So when children participate in evaluations, we must think carefully what approach, method, and tools we'd like to use. When we use surveys and questionnaires, we bring the adult world into children's lives. For many in the South, these forms and questionnaires are reminiscent of classrooms and teachers, tests, and judgments. This is not to say that one should never use quantitative and more formal measures. Good practice includes using simple language, choosing words that are easy to translate, and keeping the survey form short. We discussed earlier that the participatory approach in evaluation is aligned with children's rights. They're child-friendly, visual, less dependent on words. And by using these tools, we immediately reduce the power between adults and children. And the attention is taken away from a stranger, the evaluator, and children work with neutral and non-threatening materials. In focus group discussions with children, how we question children depends on the context. In many contexts, direct questions such as what do you feel about so-and-so will result in a stony silence, since in their culture, children do not have an opinion. So the evaluator has to be very careful, even in his own or her own response to children's answers, saying, if you say wonderful, great answer, it can direct children to answering in a way that they feel will please the evaluator. Whatever method and tool is used, it's important that children enjoy doing it. There is nothing more difficult than handling a room full of children who are bored or do not understand what to do. Any tool you use, do adapt it to the context, the literacy, and ability of the children. It's useful also to develop a package of child-friendly tools for evaluation. In doing so, thought must be given on how to sequence the activities, usually starting with simple tools, perhaps individual, and using a familiar medium such as drawings, stories, and pictures. The more reflective exercises and group discussions can follow after rapport is established through the previous exercises. The right materials also must be used so that children can interact with the media creatively. Children take time when they use participatory tools and cannot be rushed. If you are using a number of participatory tools in succession, children also need to be fed and given time to relax. These are very practical considerations when planning an evaluation. There are lots of tools available, and in the next few slides, I'm going to demonstrate some that I have used, which are useful across cultures and contexts. Drawings are versatile. While evaluating a school health program in Mongolia, I asked children to draw a healthy child and explain why the child was healthy. The tool can be used before and after a program to plot change and study impact. This is a drawing by a child who participated in a school health and hygiene program. Notice the number and details of health practices. And this drawing has fewer lines and was from the control group. This drawing is an example from an evaluation by the Child-to-Child Trust. Children were asked to draw and write, how did you help another child be healthy and happy? The schools had done various activities related to disability and developing positive attitudes. The next example is the communication map. Children draw and write in response to the open question, who do you talk to and what do you talk about? This is an excellent tool to know if children communicate what they have learned and to whom. An H, such as the one shown, is drawn on a chart paper. On the right side, under the happy face, children write what they liked and learned in the program. On the left side, under the sad face, they write what they did not like. On the horizontal line, children score on 1 to 5 their overall rating. And below the numbers, children write their suggestions on how to make the project better. To evaluate a life skills program, I developed a set of 12 picture codes that depicted various risk situations. This was developed through discussions with children and staff of NGOs. The picture codes were useful across languages and ages of children. So here the instructions were, a girl is crying while the others are playing. You, pointing to the heads of the boy and girl watching at the bottom left of the picture, are observing this. What will you say and do? For a full explanation for this tool and analysis, please refer to the website given here. Demonstrations by children are another way to know whether they have understood and can act on what they've learned. In the photo, children are weighing the baby for an early childhood program. You can also use puppets or role play. This is a really useful tool by children called the 3P matrix with its origin in the child-to-child approach: problems, plans, priorities. Children list the problems and then score on a scale of 1 to 5. They score how serious the problem is, how common it is, and what children can do to solve the problem. An example from a street children project provides a snapshot of this tool. Children are able to do small surveys and find out. Here, children are finding out what is the source of water for drinking. Children become involved in what information to obtain, how, and when to collect it. Children can also find out using disposable cameras and drawings as well. So there are many other tools that can be used with children, such as the problem and solution tree, community mapping of risk areas, the bridge model, which I used here before assessing before and after a life skills program. One color of the bridge indicates the skills obtained, and the other color explains what other skills are needed. Before and after a program is also useful. It can be written or demonstrated through pictures or role play. It's a good way to understand how change has been perceived by children. Here, girls in Nepal are ranking which illnesses are more prevalent in their region after a health education program in their village and schools. When children participate in evaluations, they usually feel empowered. Here is what one group of children said: "When I helped in deciding what to do to improve things, I felt important." So before I close, and although we've talked at length about involving children in evaluations, I would like to end with a word of caution. It's good to ask ourselves a few questions. Why do I want children to participate in the evaluation? How will the evaluation experience benefit children? Does the evaluator have the skills and ability to manage and conduct participatory evaluations and work with children? Have appropriate safeguards been put in place? Will children be safe if they participate in the evaluation? Will the evaluation experience be positive? Both time and money are needed for a participatory approach to evaluation, and one may need additional staff. Are these resources available? Does the organization working with children have support and follow-up systems in place? Evaluation with and by children generates valuable data to influence programs that are meant for children. But it's really important for evaluators to weigh these questions. In the end, that is what true child-friendly, child-centered evaluation is all about. Here are some very useful resources and a number of websites that you may like to view in order to get more resources. And of course, I will always welcome any information that you require about this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sonal, for that presentation. You've really laid out a lot of important issues, and there are some terrific questions that have come up. Because of the difficulties we have got an issue with time, and what we're going to suggest is that we will finish on time, but we'll also provide the opportunity, if people are able to stay for 10 minutes, we will also continue it and take questions. We will be putting both the recording of the webinar and the questions and answers up on the website. On Better Evaluation, we have a new thematic page on evaluation and children, where we will put the materials from the webinar, including the questions and answers. So I'll hand back to you, Simon, to handle the last bit of this.
Thanks, Patricia. Yeah, we do have time for one or two questions, and we've got a lot that have come in. Thank you, everyone who's contributed with some questions. There's some relating to Malika's presentation and some relating to Sonal's, and then there's quite a few that are sort of general. I'm going to start with one that came in early on relating to Malika's presentation. And this comes from Dennis Bors. Dennis says, the examples range from youth participation in needs analysis as well as evaluation. But what makes youth and child participation in evaluation stand out from other participatory elements in a project's life cycle? So what makes youth and child participation different from other participatory elements that a lot of people use? So why don't we take that one to Malika, see if you want to respond.
Okay, so about this youth participation in needs analysis, programmatically as well as evaluation, yes, my examples range from that, because some examples are drawn from a longer period of a project and some others were only from evaluation and monitoring and evaluation point of view. So it does vary because it depends on the type of tool that you use with youth and children as different from with adults. With adults we can have the standard tools of like PRA type of tools which they could use. But with a child's participation or youth participation, it will be something that attracts them, that makes them interested. You could see how those little children were drawing without even looking at the camera or any other people. They were so concentrated. That is because that particular tool interested them very much, this drawing and writing. When it comes to needs analysis, that was, it is also partly evaluating their own situation. Before you can come up with needs, you have to see whether your expected norms are there or not. So in that sense, it is also an evaluation. But it leads to the planning and responding to those needs. That is the way I look at it. So children and youth, they have their own ways of looking at things. Any other question that you would like to pose?
Yeah, there was a question about child protection protocols. So did any child protection issues arise in your experience, Malika, and what child protection protocol was necessary? And maybe we can ask Sonal that question as well. It's come up a few times.
Yes, it is necessary. Now, some of these exercises we were doing in the schools, so therefore we had to get the okay or permission from the principal and the teachers to do that kind of exercise. And not only within the school, but also from the administrative authorities. So there was a formal request for us to do this evaluation. This was in connection with an assignment by UNICEF. So we got a letter from UNICEF addressed to the zonal directors, and then we introduced ourselves and made it very clear that we are going to be as friendly with the children, and also it is in the good interest of the school as well. Only with that confidence we could contact the children, you know, and interact with them. But nobody was coming and watching us doing it. We were quite at ease. So I think that formal authority was the clearance, and after that they trusted us to do the exercise the way we thought best.
Thank you. And Sonal, did you want to comment on child protection and what particular measures can be used in evaluations involving children?
Just to add on to what Malika said, is I presented it in the slides that there are a host of issues that one has to be careful about. And what I'd particularly like to say, not to repeat myself from the slides, is that there are certain areas, such as when you're dealing with children infected by HIV or with street labor, or children who are at risk, one has to be extremely careful about the tools that you're using, the questions you're asking. So aside from the formal methods that one would use to obtain consent, as well as the informal where you're explaining to children why you're doing what you're doing, and plus you provide them the freedom to move out whenever, making sure adults are not present. I think the sensitive handling of what information we need and how we are going to gather it is critically important. This is often not written in textbooks, but out of experience, I think if one is aware of what children are disclosing and careful right from the start in your planning who to involve, tools and questions, I think you would be following child protection protocols. There is a lot of data information now on child safeguarding, and some of these principles could also be used. One of the websites that's very useful is what I've mentioned, childethics.com, as well as another website called keepingchildrensafe.com, which could also be looked at for further information.
Thanks. We have time for one more question for you, Sonal. There's a few questions that talk about the fact that children have different abilities, and some children have special needs, and some children are less likely to want to engage in certain activities that you talked about. So how do you take into consideration this range of abilities and desires to engage to then involve children?
Well, I think first it's important how you group the children in terms of their age and ability and sometimes gender. Having done that and understood what their abilities are, there are so many tools that are available and that can be adapted. Some are visual, some are more individual, some are group activities. And by adapting these activities according to the needs, you can work with any of the tools that are available. I've worked with different groups of children, and I've never found that a problem. Usually children are quite happy to participate, and if there are those who don't, I do keep repeating myself that if you are not comfortable, it's perfectly all right to sit quietly. In one or two cases, some have, but they have quietly joined the group later.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to have to close now because we said we would finish at this time. So if you do have to leave, then please do. But I think what we'll do, because there's so many questions left, and I think the presenters still have a bit more time, so we're offering to stay around for another 10 minutes. Just to work through some more questions and have a bit more discussion. If you want to stay with us, that will be wonderful. If you do have to leave, that will be fine. As Patricia mentioned earlier, we will be posting all of the questions that have been asked on the Better Evaluation website on the page that's been posted. And we're going to invite the presenters to respond to those online over the next week or so. So you'll be able to get some responses there. We'll also post the presentations. Some people have been asking about that, particularly the references and the links that have been shared in those presentations. We'll make sure those are available to everyone. And this session has been recorded and will be available also, so you can share with your colleagues that couldn't make it today. We've had, actually, at the maximum, we had about 100 people online today, so it's wonderful to have everyone with us from all across the world as well. And we look forward to seeing you all again at some point, maybe to the next webinar. There'll be a short survey as you log out, just a few quick questions about your experience today and your ideas for future webinars. We'd appreciate if you could fill that in. Great, thank you very much, and please stick around if you want to hear some more questions. Okay, so I'm just going back through the question list. So we had some questions about child protection that we've dealt with.
The one on gender, Simon?
Yes, okay.
This children's participation seems to be reinforcing gender norms. Girls cleaning toilets. Can I say something on that?
Yes, okay. So this one came in, and there's actually a few questions about balancing girl and boy participation as well.
Yes.
And so maybe you can talk a bit about the gender focus. Yep.
Right. The girls cleaning the toilet means, because I picked these examples from a boys' school and a girls' school and put them together. So the one that I have taken for toilets is from the girls' school. And that is what I wanted to emphasize was they are deciding that the bigger girls have a separate set of toilets and the smaller ones a different set. And the bigger girls, especially during their menstruation periods and things like that, they want more space. They had hangers there so that they can do a change. So it's very different. But the little children had a smaller toilets, and the idea behind two people going at the same time and one standing near the door, I think those were nice ideas about protection itself and how they themselves were taking care of it. So this is not to say that it's the same school and the girls were doing, I'm sorry if that was misunderstood. It is from a girls' school that I had taken those examples.
Okay, and Sonal, do you want to comment on sort of balancing the gender participation?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I have worked with both mixed groups and single-sex groups, and I found that often in our culture, girls are go through a culture stereotyping of being quiet, if you are silent and do not express yourself, you are good girls. And so I've sometimes found it difficult when we have a mixed group of boys and girls. Especially when we are having group discussions, I like to separate them in many cases so that we are able to get the girls to talk about their experiences. And if you do that, it's also a very good method of getting gender disaggregated data. So in many cases, that would be recommended, especially for the discussions and so forth.
I agree with Sonal on that. It is they are more expressive in their own group, you know. And later on, you can do sharing also. That is also possible.
Okay, we've got some questions here about so we've been talking about involving children in evaluation, but is it also important to involve children in the broader process of projects involved in the planning and implementation, for example?
May I come in on that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I've shared some tools in the evaluation slides that I presented. Some of them are planning tools. For example, the 3P matrix is an excellent tool for planning. What children would like to either work on a plan for evaluation or work on implementation. It has varied uses. And if you are able to have evaluation by children, one should involve children in formulating the questions, deciding where to go, what to ask, and to some extent also in the analysis of the data. It's very easy to tabulate some of the information, make bar diagrams, and encourage children to review some of the data that they've collected. So yes, my response to that question is that you could use many of these tools for needs analysis, for planning, for monitoring, as well as for evaluation. Often you can also factor in a before-after, and that also is useful.
Yes.
To notice change.
Mm-hmm. Can I compliment Sonal? Simon?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. I just want to add that the same type of tool can be used at the different stages of the life cycle of a project. Needs analysis is also, in a sense, an evaluation of a situation. So therefore, I compliment Sonal, what she said. These tools can be used at the different stages of the project cycle. It is not only for evaluation, it's not only for monitoring, very much in the initial stages of planning, where needs identification is important. And that's the time children's perceptions matter quite a lot. It is not after something has been done already, but at the planning stage, if you can involve them, that is much more productive and useful for the children.
Okay, thank you. Just looking through more questions here. Has there been any experience of involving children with disabilities in particular? Anything you can say about that?
I can just share one example that came up in the presentation itself. The first picture that I showed was showing a child, not the first one, the second one. This one. what matters in enabling children's participation. In that slide, I showed a little child showing some pictures. The mother was complaining. He was a little bit mentally deficient, and he wouldn't stay in school. He comes back home, and a lot of complaints from the teachers. And the mother was also complaining in front of the child. So what I did at that stage was, is there anything that you have drawn or whatever that he has created? Then he comes with the pictures and he started talking. And very productively he was explaining what it is. I think adults don't have the patience to listen to them. And then they condemn that these children cannot be corrected or whatever it is. So it is a matter of sometimes it is ethics, as Sonal very well pointed out, and sometimes it is understanding the situation from the child's point of view. You can see how harmonized in that picture this supposed to be mentally deficient child is even answering questions, asking questions from us, from the facilitator, quite freely. And the mother is with a smile because she saw some change in the child. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I just come in? With the child-to-child trust, we have developed evaluation frameworks for children with disability. And to answer that question, yes, it is possible to do it. I can give an example of some work I did with spastic children, severely handicapped as well. And we did a needs analysis. We talked about what were their problems, and they were able to score it in terms of high and low. Just simple. You don't have to go through the grades of 1 to 5, but high and low is quite sufficient for the evaluation. And the results have been amazing. We presented it to their teachers, and they could not believe that children could answer these questions. So the 3P matrix, which I presented, is a very useful tool which you could use. Instead of numbers, you could use, if children are able to see, they can use stones to provide a higher number or a lower number or a middle number. So there are many ways in which you can work with the tools with children with disability.
Okay, I've got a question here about how can you ensure that the findings from monitoring and evaluation exercises are shared with children and not just involving children and then ignoring them. Can you talk about that?
Can I?
Please, go ahead.
Simon, so please go ahead, Malika.
No, I just wanted to say this triangulation and sharing takes place during that process of the exercise itself, so that you don't have to sort of present it to children later, and they see it for themselves most of the time. Only thing is the consolidated data from different samples may not have been shared with them, but they will be shared with people who are going to intervene in this. But for a particular group of children who have assessed, it is there in front of them. So I think it's on-the-spot triangulation and sharing takes place in these participatory methodologies. Yes.
I'd just like to add, Simon, adding on to what Malika has said, that for some of the data, you can present it immediately and children are able to see it just the way in which it's collected. But I must say that this is one of my concerns when I do child participatory evaluation. I need to negotiate with those who have contracted me that we must go back and inform the children of what we have learned. As a consultant, I'm not sure whether this is done adequately. This definitely needs to be addressed. And it's not just about informing children. We have to also present the data in child-friendly ways. So I think this is an excellent question, and I think much more can be done about it.
Thank you. And I think related to that as well is the there's a few questions about sort of engaging adults in these processes, and sometimes it's sort of mandated that an adult has to be present during some of these exercises for safeguarding reasons or for legal reasons. but sometimes the involvement of adults can complicate things and can adults don't listen to the children all the time, or children feel uncomfortable when the adults are around. So how do you, is there anything you can do to sort of facilitate the sort of engagement between adults and children in these exercises?
Well, since there was a question, can I come in, Simon?
Yeah, go ahead.
Malik, yeah. There was that example where I showed that the position of the pavilion was changed and the comments were by children. I think there was a question asking how the child felt brave enough to go and do that. And the situation was like this. It was an exercise where a participatory planning exercise was being done with parents, and not necessarily the children, but children come in when we are doing that community exercise. So what happened was, it was really buying in by these architects, trying to show it to the parents and go away with it. But the practical mapping exercise had been done earlier for the location of the school. And these were the diagrams that they were trying to share with the parents and get the okay from the School Development Society. And the children were there. They never asked the children not to come. They were also coming in for curiosity observing these. It was the role of the facilitator to let them say something and make them feel, because the school is for the children. They are the users. So I happened to facilitate that session. So I allowed the children also to say what they feel about it. And that encouraged them. Then that is how they made comfortable to come and say what they wanted to say. And the parents were also listening. They were never trying to stop the child from saying what he wanted to say. So it is matter of creating a friendly environment. So even among adults, children are not scared to express themselves, provided you create that kind of feeling. Yeah.
Thank you. And Sonal, do you want to have one last remark about that, and then I think we'll have to wrap up.
Yeah, I think this is a really important question. I think a lot of this depends upon what are you evaluating. Sometimes you're evaluating extremely sensitive issues related to trafficking, abuse, risk situations that children are in, and it's really important to plan and negotiate how adults should be present. Yes, in terms of safeguarding, we must have adults who are responsible for children available. What I did mention in my presentation, and what I'd like to reiterate, it's important that they be available, but preferably out of earshot, often depending upon the venue that you select, which is very important. We create a safe space. We also provide a space where adults can sit. Sometimes if we are in a community hall, the adults can sit outside. And I've often found that by providing some drinks and snacks, they show some curiosity about what's happening, but gradually they do wander off. So I think without being too abrasive about not being them present, we do have to craft the situation where children do feel free to express themselves. And children are very sensitive to this. If they know that somebody is present, they will not disclose. And so it depends on the situation and the children, but I think one has to plan and negotiate very carefully.
Thank you, Sonal, and thank you to both of you for staying around for an extra few minutes so we can get through some of these questions. It's amazing. There's still 57 people online sort of listening to the end of the webinar, which is fantastic. So thank you all for sticking around as well. Thank you for your patience at the beginning as we had some technical problems, but we're really pleased that Sonal and Malika were able to join us today. To present to us, and for both of them it was their first time doing an online presentation, so yeah, just join me in sort of thanking them. And there's obviously a lot of interest in this topic, a lot of very particular issues to discuss and to work through, and it's been great to touch on some of those today, and we're committed to following up on a lot of these things on the Better Evaluation website, and we'll share that through all of our channels and through the community of evaluators as well. We're really pleased to be able to work with the community of evaluators today. It's been a great opportunity, and we look forward to more opportunities of the same. So from all of us, thank you, and thank you to the presenters as well, and I'll just give you a chance to say goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye, everyone, and I'm so pleased that I could actually present. Thank you.
And
yes, Sonal, you were wondering what was happening.
Yes, I had a lot of technical glitches, so I am feeling very fortunate that I was able to get online.
Yes.
I'd like to thank everyone for their patience in bearing with that technical glitch. Thank you, everybody.
And thank you to Patricia for chairing as well.
Patricia, thank you.
I'd also just like to end by saying that this partnership with Better Evaluation has been a wonderful journey and experience for the community of evaluators. And we
definitely, yes.
we will get many more opportunities again. Thank you.
Thank you once again on behalf of COE.
Great, and we look forward to following up the additional questions and sharing the additional resources. So thank you very much to the presenters for all the questions.
Until next time, goodbye.